What's the worst thing a mother could do? Yell at her kids, neglect them, be overly controlling. Well, I lived under the same roof as the woman I once believed was the kindest mother alive, until the day she forced me to kick a girl out of our home because that girl saved my baby brother's life. As the lies began to unravel, I realized something terrifying. The most dangerous person in our house was our mother, and that's when I knew I had to protect my baby brother, no matter the cost. Chapter 1. The Rumor About a Monster. I was 14 when my mom decided to bring a dangerous person into our home. Her name was Yuna, my cousin. She was from my mom's side of the family, the daughter of Aunt Ji-un, who everyone in our household whispered about like she carried some kind of unstable gene in her bloodline. Yuna had just been released from a juvenile correctional facility after allegedly trying to suffocate her infant sister. That story spread from my mother's mouth like some chilling urban legend. Yuna, 16 years old, lost her mind from jealousy because everyone doted on her tiny baby sister. One night, the family heard a muffled cry, rushed into the room, and saw Yuna pressing a pillow over the baby's face. No one asked questions. No one investigated. No one wanted to know the details. They just believed. Believed that Yuna was a monster. My aunt, paralyzed by fear and shame, refused to take her daughter back once she was released. And my mother, stepping into the role of a self-declared moral heroine, announced, "We'll take her in. She deserves a second chance." I didn't know what to think. I remember quietly admiring my mom. To me, she was brave, noble, compassionate. 3 days later, Yuna stood at our front door with a small bag and eyes so downcast it was like she wanted to disappear from the world. She was so thin, I thought I could see right through her. She looked nothing like the baby killer I had imagined, but any sympathy I had was crushed by the way my family treated her. My dad, who rarely got involved in parenting decisions, agreed to let my mom install a lock on the outside of Yuna's bedroom door. She was only allowed out during mealtimes and school hours. No knives, no forks, no sharp objects of any kind. One night at dinner, my mom said outright, "If she acts like an animal, then we treat her like one." I still remember how everyone would talk about her in Korean, right in front of her, as if she were a piece of furniture. Because they assumed she didn't understand the language, they said things like, "She looks like she's planning to kill the whole family. She's probably counting how many stabs she'd need to finish off your little brother." I heard it all, and it made my skin crawl, but I didn't say anything, because back then, I also thought Yuna was a ticking time bomb. Then I started to notice the little things. At night, I'd hear Yuna humming lullabies through the vent songs in a language I couldn't understand, soft and airy like wind. Whenever my baby brother was fussing, he'd often go quiet when she sang. I saw her quietly cleaning things no one else would touch, the mountain of dirty dishes, in the sink toys scattered on the floor, diapers fallen under the couch. One time during dinner, I caught her subtly making shadow puppets with her hands forming a bunny on the wall to entertain my brother while everyone else at the table pretended she didn't exist. I didn't fully understand what I was seeing at the time. All I knew was something didn't match. There was a disconnect between the rumors and reality, and I never imagined that just a few weeks later, Yuna would save my baby brother's life, and then be kicked out of the house for doing it. Chapter 2. The Price of Being a Hero. That day was my mom's birthday. As usual, she threw a big, flashy party. Friends, relatives, neighbors, even people I'd never seen before showed up. Beer and liquor were cracked open nonstop. Music blared so loud the walls practically vibrated. The adults gathered in the backyard, kids ran wild through the house, and I was assigned to watch my little brother. I didn't mind. I was used to it. My brother was about 2 years old at the time, restless, curious, and obsessed with anything round or shiny. I was busy scrolling through my phone when I heard a strange noise in the living room. A weird choking sound, then silence. I looked up. My brother's face was turning blue. His eyes were wide and panicked. His tiny hands clawed at the air. He was choking. I rushed over without thinking, grabbed him, slapped his back, flipped him over nothing. His eyes started glazing over. I panicked and screamed, "Someone help! Please!" But no one heard me. The music was still blasting. Laughter and shouting echoed from the backyard. I started crying. My hands were shaking. I didn't know what else to do. Then suddenly, Yuna appeared out of nowhere. Without a word, she snatched my brother from my arms, laid him face down across her knee, and started pounding hard on his back again and again. I yelled, "What are you doing?" Then popped a small candy shot out of his mouth and rolled across the floor. He screamed. Yuna held him tight, whispering something in a foreign language. He was breathing. He was alive. I let out a shaky breath, my heart pounding like a drum. Then the back door slammed open. A wave of drunk adults stumbled in eyes red beer cans, in hand laughter still hanging on their lips, until they saw us. Yuna clutching a sobbing toddler. Me frozen like I'd done something horribly wrong. My mom was the first to step forward. "What did you do to him?" she shrieked, yanking my brother out of Yuna's arms like Yuna was some kind of venomous snake. I shouted, "Mom." Yuna saved him. He was choking on candy. She helped him breathe again. My mom scoffed. "Oh, please. That's the oldest trick in the book. Make him nearly die, then play the hero." An aunt muttered, "Classic behavior. The older they get, the more dangerous they become." Yuna opened her mouth. "I didn't shut up," my mom barked. "Don't pull your little act here. I know exactly what kind of person you are." The crowd started murmuring, nodding like they'd all heard this story before. They didn't need evidence, just someone to start the accusation. Yuna stepped back. I saw her shrink into herself like a soaked leaf being trampled underfoot. No more protests. No more explanations. She just disappeared into the background, and I stood there, eyes stinging, too stunned to speak. Because deep down I knew no matter how loud I shouted, the truth would always be drowned out by their prejudice. That night, our family held what they called a family meeting. But it felt more like a trial. My mom declared she's leaving tonight. I've already booked a bus ticket to the shelter. No one objected. Only me and Bruno, our family's old dog, followed Yuna to the bus stop at 11 p.m. We sat there on the freezing bench, saying nothing. Until Yuna turned to me. Her eyes held no fear, only something deeper. Resignation. And in perfect, fluent Korean, she said, "You're the only person who's ever been kind to me." My whole body went cold. She understood everything. I couldn't say a word. Because in that moment I realized she had heard it all, known it all, remembered it all. And this was only the beginning of the terrifying truth I was about to uncover. Chapter 3. The Confession at the Bus Stop. I sat there in the cold breeze of the late night, unable to say a word. Yuna had just said, "You're the only person who's ever been kind to me," in Korean. Clearly, fluently, not a single word out of place. She understood Korean. She always had. Every insult, every jab, every whispered scheme over dinner, every cruel laugh behind closed doors. I swallowed hard. My heart was thudding like a war drum. Yuna kept her eyes fixed ahead, no longer looking at me. Her voice dropped into something softer, almost like she was talking to herself. She continued in English. Her voice barely above a whisper, but still audible. "Your mom knew I understood Korean. She told me if I ever said a word, she'd have me committed. Forever." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She wasn't even angry. She was just telling the story, as if for once she finally had the chance to say it whether or not anyone believed her. Then she clenched her hands tightly, hugging her knees to her chest. "I need you to know. What happened to my sister Aiki wasn't what people think." I held my breath. It was the first time I'd ever heard Yuna speak about that night. She spoke slowly. "I was only 14. My parents were out of town. They left me and Aiki at your mom's house for a few days. Your mom told me I should go watch a movie, take a break. So I did. And when I came back, she paused. Her fingers dug into the fabric of her pants knuckles, pale and stiff. I saw your mom holding a pillow over Aiki's face. My entire body went numb. I screamed. She looked at me calmly, then picked up the phone and called my parents, right in front of me. She said I'd gone insane, that I tried to smother my sister. She cried, put on a performance like she'd just saved Aiki from a monster. My stomach twisted into a knot. I wanted to push the thought away, to scream, no, that can't be true. My mom would never. But somewhere deep inside, I already knew. Something had never added up. Then Yuna looked at me for the first time since we sat down. Her eyes were hollow but unwavering. Did you know if Aiki had died back then, the entire inheritance from our grandmother would have gone to your mom? She's the eldest daughter in the family. I was frozen. I'd never heard that detail before. No one had ever mentioned money. They only ever called Yuna a murderer. They never once talked about motive. After that day, they sent me away. I never got to see Aiki again. Never got to speak. Never got to tell anyone. Yuna took a long, deep breath. She said if I opened my mouth, she'd make sure I died in that institution. Somewhere no one would care if I screamed. My hands started shaking. A cold chill ran down my spine as I remembered the way my mom used to threaten Yuna. The sweet smile that never reached her razor-sharp eyes. Before I could ask anything, Yuna stood up. The bus was pulling in. She turned her voice low, but firm. There's a blue origami crane on your desk. I nodded, confused. Inside it, there's a recording. Last night, your mom threatened me again. She talked about money. She talked about a job that needs to be done. She stepped up onto the bus, then glanced back one last time. Your little brother, he's not safe. And you aren't either. The bus hissed, doors closed, and it disappeared into the night. I stood there, with the dog beside me, my hands frozen, my heart aching like it was being squeezed from the inside. For the first time in my life, I was afraid to go home. Chapter 4: The Blue Origami Crane. It took me nearly an hour to gather the courage to go back home. My hands were frozen even without gloves, and my mind, completely blank, kept looping Yuna's final words. Your little brother isn't safe, and neither are you. My phone lit up with a message from Mom. Where are you? It's past midnight. I typed, on my way. Then erased it. Typed, walking the dog, erased that too. In the end, I just sent one word. Coming. Mom was already waiting in the living room. The lights were dim yellowish, like the homey glow of a worried mother. But when she smiled, I saw it clearly. That smile wasn't real. Dad asked why I was late. Mom stood just behind him, her eyes scanning my every move, every twitch, every breath, like she was analyzing me under a microscope. I mumbled something about traffic, then slipped off to my room. My hand trembled as I opened the drawer on my desk. It was there exactly where Yuna said it would be, a blue origami crane. I picked it up, my fingers trembling. It was heavier than it should have been for just a folded piece of paper. I unfolded it carefully. Tucked inside, held together with tiny strips of tape, was a silver USB stick. On it, written in Korean, last night. I plugged it into my laptop. Only one file popped up, an audio recording. I hit play. Mom's voice came through. Not her usual sweet, sugary tone, but something raw, contemptuous, cold. I know you understand Korean. If you ever tell anyone, I'll have you thrown in a mental hospital, a place where screaming is just background noise. Then Yuna's shaky voice. You don't have to shut your mouth. If you bring that up, you'll follow Aiki. Understand? My heart stopped. I couldn't breathe. I had just listened to my mother threaten Yuna's life. I scrambled to pause the file the moment I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I slipped the USB into the back of my phone case, just as the door opened. Mom stood there. That same soft, concerned expression. "You're still awake?" I nodded, careful to keep my eyes from flickering. She looked around the room. Her gaze settled briefly on the torn remains of the blue crane sitting on my desk. Yuna loved origami, she said casually, like she was just making conversation. But her eyes were knives testing for resistance. She used to say she wanted to make a whole flock of cranes for the family. Crazy, right? I forced a laugh, nodded like I agreed, like I still believed my mother was a normal person. She left the room. I waited a few minutes, then opened my laptop again. This time, I copied the audio file to 3 different cloud drives. I emailed one to myself, saving it in my drafts. I needed backups. I needed survival insurance in case things got worse. But just as the upload hit 3%, the Wi-Fi died. No way that was a coincidence. That's when I heard my little brother crying. I tiptoed to the door, peered through the gap. Mom was holding him, gently patting his back, whispering something in his ear. But the way she held him, it didn't look motherly. It looked exactly like what Yuna had described, like a pillow over Ike's face. I backed away, closed the door, pressed my back against it. At that moment, I knew I couldn't trust anyone in this house. Not anymore. The next morning over breakfast, Mom acted like nothing had happened. Dad even praised her. "You handled the Yuna thing really well." I wanted to scream at him. "You don't even know who your wife really is." But I kept quiet. I knew I needed more. Later, when the house was empty, I pulled out the old photo box. There was one picture, Mom holding baby Ike. She was smiling, but her eyes were dead. And her hands, they weren't holding the baby's head like they should have. They were wrapped around her neck. I don't know when it happened exactly, but since last night, I stopped being a child. I had stepped into something else. A game. A game of survival. And my mother, was the enemy. Chapter 5. The Mind Game and the Awakening. From the moment I saw the look in my mom's eyes as she held my little brother, something in me shifted. There was no more doubt. I knew. Yuna wasn't lying. And my brother was living on a thread as thin as a hair. So I did the only thing I could do at that point. I pretended. I still smiled when Mom asked about homework. Still nodded when she said, Yuna was just too dangerous to keep in this house. On the outside, I became the perfect, obedient child. But inside, I was documenting every strange behavior, every vague comment, every look that lingered too long. I hid a small notebook behind a stack of old school books. I called it the survival log. On the 3rd day after Yuna left, Mom turned her attention toward me. She sat across from me in the kitchen peeling apples and said, "I know Yuna's situation must have confused you, but you have to remember, manipulators always know how to fake it, just like she did. You remember, don't you?" I watched her peel each slice thin as onion skin. Each motion felt like a silent threat. She smiled gently. But I knew. She was studying my reaction. I answered just like a well-trained puppet I know. I don't trust her anymore. I learned to act the way my mother had been acting her entire life. At school, I couldn't focus. All I did was obsessively refresh the daycare app, tracking my little brother's whereabouts during the day. Until Maya, my best friend, whispered to me during lunch break, "My mom said your mom's visited the daycare 3 times this week, always when the main staff are on lunch break." The vein in my neck started pulsing. The second time Mom visited the cameras, mysteriously failed system error, they said. I started checking the daycare's visitor log. Every visit of hers lined up with shift changes times when unfamiliar temps were filling in people who didn't know our family history. I took screenshots of everything. One day, Mrs. Chen, our elderly neighbor, made a passing comment as I helped carry her groceries. "So good of you helping out. Just like that time your mom had me watch the baby." "Not this one. The other little girl." I turned and asked casually, "When was that?" "Oh, years ago. Before your brother was born. Your mom said guests were coming, so she canceled. I checked the date. It lined up exactly with the day Ike nearly died. And that's when I started to feel it, like I was following the trail of a predator, a creature that had lived its life in shadows, wrapped in the skin of moral virtue, of sacrifice, of compassion, but underneath was a monster. Mom told us she'd be attending the upcoming daycare fundraiser event, a night where she could get alone time with my brother. I didn't hesitate. I messaged Dad circling around the topic. Mom's been feeling tired lately. What if we let Grandma and Grandpa take care of the baby that night, just so she can rest? He agreed, sounding relieved actually. But I saw something flicker in Mom's eyes when she heard. Something sharp. She asked only one question. You don't think I'm strong enough to take care of my own child? I smiled, played innocent, laughed like I didn't notice the blade hidden in her words, but inside, I was already building my defense. I started backing everything up in 3 separate places. I created a folder labeled Math Homework, but inside were screenshots, daycare logs, audio snippets, observation notes. I even called a child protection hotline anonymously, but their response hit like a wall. There's not enough specific evidence to act. We need signs of physical harm or witness testimony. I hung up, didn't say a word, but in my head I screamed, fine, then I'll find the evidence, even if it means going to war with the entire world. That night, I reopened the blue origami crane, folded it back again. It wasn't a toy anymore. It was armor. It was my shield. I knew I wasn't a child anymore. I was the only person standing between my mother and my little brother, and I wasn't backing down. Chapter 6. The Safety Net. Every possible scenario in my head led to one undeniable truth: I couldn't do this alone. My mother was too smart, too careful. She had fooled the entire family and entire system for years, and she had almost made Yuna disappear forever. I needed adults, but I couldn't call the police. I couldn't just run up and scream my mom is trying to hurt my brother without being labeled insane. So I started building a network. The first person I turned to was Maya. I told her a portion of the truth, that I thought something was off with my mom, that I was worried my little brother might be in danger. No drama, no horrifying details, just the fear of a concerned sister. Maya listened in silence for a long time, then said something that nearly made me cry. Whatever you need, I'm in. Her mom worked at the daycare. That was a huge advantage. I asked Maya to discreetly keep tabs on mom's visits, ask questions about SIDS, even volunteer to hold the baby for practice. That's when things started becoming clear. My mom often showed up during staff lunch breaks, always under the excuse of dropping something off or wanting to see the baby. But she never actually spent time with him. She just observed and left. The second person I reached out to was Mrs. Chen, our hawk-eyed elderly neighbor. She was the only person who had ever casually mentioned, your mom doesn't really like kids, unless they're her own. One day, as I helped her carry some groceries, I nudged the topic. She told me that time the little girl choked your mom just happened to be there. But when I got home earlier than expected, she left in a hurry, like she'd been caught. I wrote down every detail. Even if there was no physical evidence, I knew she was a living witness. The third person was my grandmother, Dad's mom. Unlike Grandpa, she'd never been too close with my mother. And ever since Mom suggested, let me handle the baby's birthday this year, no need for the family to get involved, Grandma had started raising eyebrows. I told her Mom seemed stressed lately, easily agitated, that I was scared she was under too much pressure. She nodded slowly. When you were little, there were signs, but back then no one said anything. I invited her to come stay with us a week early before my brother's birthday, under the pretense of rest and family bonding. Her presence was like a mirror. Mom couldn't drop the mask, but I could see it. Every time her plans were interrupted, every time Grandma offered to help with the baby, Mom's face would freeze. In the extended family group chat, I started hyping up the birthday event. Said things like, Mom's worked so hard, I want to surprise her with a big family gathering. Everyone was on board. My mother couldn't reject invitations from 20 relatives, but I knew inside she was seething. Every time I said I'm inviting everyone, it was another knife slicing through her plans to isolate. And finally, I sent the recording of my mother's threats to Yuna's mom. She didn't respond for the first 30 minutes. Then a message popped up. I've called the lawyer. The safety net was in place. Not perfect. Not entirely legal, but strong enough to keep my little brother alive. I watched him sleep his lips, smacking softly, like he was dreaming of milk. And I knew the monster still lived under the same roof. And I couldn't scream yet. But this time it wouldn't take anyone else. Not on my watch. Chapter 7. When the mask starts to crack. There's one thing I've learned from living with a manipulator. They don't get angry when they're doubted. They get angry when they lose control. And my mother was starting to lose control. Every private little plan she had for my brother was quietly derailed by me. No direct confrontations, no open rebellion, just coincidences. Grandma just happened to be around. Maya just happened to be babysitting. And people just happened to walk in at the right time. I had never seen my mother this tense. Her eyes darting around constantly, her fingers clenching the glass a bit too hard, her smile tighter by the day. Then one afternoon, she casually suggested, "Sweetie, I was thinking of taking your little brother for a photo shoot this weekend. Just the two of us. I already made the appointment. Mother and son make it special." Instantly, I knew. This wasn't about pictures. This was her trying to get him alone. And if I said nothing, it might be the last time he ever appeared in any photo at all. So I smiled bright as ever. "That sounds like a great idea, Mom. Even better if we all go. Let's make it a full family shoot. Cozy and fun." She paused for just a second. A flicker of rage flared in her eyes. Quick, subtle. Only someone watching closely would have caught it. Then she smiled again. "Of course. I just didn't want him to get too tired with so many people." I met her eyes and said gently, "You'll have us there to help. You don't have to worry about a thing." She nodded. But I knew I had just won that round. That's when she upped the game. Her psychological tactics got sharper. One day she sat in the kitchen peeling fruit, laughing softly. "Yuna's mother called?" Poor woman. Kept apologizing for how much trouble they've caused our family. I just told her, don't worry. People like Yuna, they learn to manipulate from a young age, don't they? Each slice of apple hit the plate like a blade slicing through someone's throat. I just nodded, played the part, but inside, I felt ice crawling up my spine. I kept pretending to be the obedient daughter. The more convinced she was that I had fallen for it, the more careless she became, but not everyone was so easily fooled. One dinner, she slipped up, changed the story of why Yuna had been sent away. Dad raised an eyebrow. "Wait, I thought you said Yuna smothered the baby, but before that you said she dropped her off the bed?" Mom froze for a split second, then quickly recovered. Everyone was panicking back then. I must have remembered wrong. But everyone knew she was dangerous. Right, Dad didn't answer. But I saw it. The seed of doubt had been planted. As my brother's birthday drew closer, Mom grew more unhinged. First, she told me not to invite the extended family. Then a few days later, changed her mind. Maybe just a few close relatives. I smiled sweetly and quietly, opened the family group chat, inviting everyone. Along with the message, "Thank you, Mom, for all your hard work. We want to surprise you with a big birthday celebration." The result, she got so angry she smashed a glass of orange juice in the kitchen. But in front of Dad, she switched gears instantly, laughing, "Oops, guess I'm just a bit clumsy lately." "Must be tired." Dad looked down at the shards of glass, then up at her. And in his eyes, trust was starting to fade. Quietly, I texted Yuna. She responded with a photo. A piece of paper. A letter. Written by my mother. It was a formal inquiry into how to transfer inheritance from Ike. Nothing else needed to be said. I understood everything now. And I knew this wasn't just about protecting my little brother anymore. I had to save myself, too. Chapter 8. The birthday trap. My little brother's birthday that year wasn't a celebration. It was a trap. But not her trap. It was a trap for her. I sent out carefully worded invitations to every relative in our family group. Chat Mama's worked so hard. Let's surprise her at the baby's birthday just to say thank you. The wording was sweet, full of family spirit, and full of strategy. One by one, the relatives showed up. The same ones my mother had previously turned away with dozens of excuses. My husband has a fever. Our house is being renovated. The baby's sick. We're going out of town. All lies, but this time her lies unraveled in front of everyone. One by one, aunts, uncles, cousins began whispering, "Wait, didn't she say they were out of town? She told me the baby had pneumonia. She said the floor was cracked and unsafe." My mother stood there forcing a smile like she was orchestrating it all, but I saw her hand trembling behind her back, her fingernails digging into her palm until it turned red. Then Grandma walked over, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, and said softly, "I just want to be here. To watch this little one grow up. Safe." My mother didn't reply. Later, she pulled me into the kitchen. As soon as the door shut behind us, she hissed through clenched teeth, "What the hell are you doing?" And for the first time in my life, I looked her in the eye. No fear, no hesitation, no acting. I simply said, "The more people around you, the safer he is. That's all." Her face froze. I left the room before she could respond, left her standing alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the sound of laughter outside like knives slicing into the illusion of control she once had. The party was lively. Kids ran through the halls. Adults shared stories, took photos, embraced warmly. And me, I never took my eyes off her. She sat on a chair smiling politely at everyone. But I could see it, she was unraveling. Then near the end of the party, she suddenly stood up. Her voice was soft like a feather. "I think the baby's tired. Let me take him upstairs to sleep. The bedroom. A place with no witnesses." Before I could say anything, Grandma stood first. "Let me. You should rest. You've had a long day." That wasn't a suggestion. It was a blade cutting through the final strand of my mother's plan. I watched as she forced a smile, but her eye twitched slightly. She nodded. Grandma held my brother close. My mother turned toward her room and locked the door from the inside. I knew exactly what she was doing. She needed a new plan, a counterattack, but she no longer had control. That night, Dad pulled me aside out on the porch. He handed me a small USB stick. Security cameras have been running since last week. Living room, upstairs hallway. Everything. I gripped it tightly in my hand. It wasn't just surveillance. It was the first sign Dad believed me. His unspoken admission that something wasn't right. All I said was, "Thank you, Dad." That night, with the house asleep, I lay in bed clutching the blue origami crane. Just a few weeks ago, I was a kid no one paid attention to. Now, I'm the only one standing between life and death for my little brother. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know one thing for sure. I've forced the monster out of its comfort zone, and soon it's going to show its teeth. Chapter 9. The Collapse. 3 days after the birthday party, my mother made one final offer. "I think we should do a private photo shoot for the baby, just to capture something special." I asked immediately, "Is anyone else going with you?" She gave me a smile, that smile. The one I knew too well by now, so fake it made my skin crawl. No need. Just me and him. The photographer is someone I know totally trustworthy. I nodded on the outside. But inside, I felt a chill spread it through my entire body. After dinner that night, while Dad was washing dishes, I quietly asked, "Can you try calling the studio Mom mentioned?" He looked at me, hesitated a bit, then dialed the number. No one answered. There was no such studio. It didn't exist. And right at that moment, he looked at me like he was truly seeing me for the first time. The storm I had been bracing for finally arrived. My mother knew I was unraveling everything she had built. She knew I was slowly guiding the whole family out of her control. The next afternoon, I was casually journaling in the living room when she walked in holding a bottle of pre-made milk. It's noisy out here. I'll take the baby to my room, help him nap. I stood up immediately. She raised an eyebrow. What's wrong, sweetie? Grandma was there too. And this time, she stepped forward, snatched the bottle from Mom's hand, and frowned as she examined the cloudy liquid inside. He's already been fed, Grandma said. And why does the milk look like that? For a moment, my mother froze. No one said anything. No one accused her. Just silence. And that silence was louder than 100 accusations. She pulled her hand back, her voice hoarse. I know what you're doing. All of you. Every suspicious look. You're all turning against me. Then she looked straight at me, and it all started with you. For the first time, her mask fully came off. Her eyes no longer soft, just raw hatred, unfiltered rage. Her voice shattered into screaming, "You're destroying this family. You'd rather believe that crazy girl than your own mother." Dad rushed in, pulling me behind him, but she lunged, grabbed the bottle, and raised it like she was about to slam it onto the table. "You're all traitors." My little brother was lying on the floor nearby, watching everything unfold with wide, confused eyes. And me, I was frozen. I didn't know whether to protect my dad or grab my brother and run. But instinct chose for me. I scooped him into my arms, raced out the front door, and bolted toward Mrs. Chen's house, our sharpest, most clear-headed neighbor. Behind me, I heard Mom scream, Dad shouting, things crashing, footsteps pounding behind me. Then the front door slammed shut. I pounded on Mrs. Chen's door like a madwoman. She opened it. Startled, but before she could ask anything, I said the only words that mattered. Please, save my brother. We stayed there while the police were called. My mother, once revered by the whole family for her sacrifice and compassion, now sat sobbing in the back of a police car. Handcuffed. Hair a mess. Face contorted in rage. She couldn't smile anymore. She had no one left to control. The house I grew up in was now a crime scene. Dad had a minor injury on his hand from trying to restrain her, but what hurt more was the look on his face, completely shattered. No one said a word as she was taken away. Only my baby brother. I giggled in my arms. He didn't understand a thing. All he saw was me right there with him, and I knew that smile of his was the one thing that made every moment of this worth it. Chapter 10, The Truth and the Aftermath. After that night, my mother was placed in temporary custody for a psychological evaluation. The house became eerily quiet. No more footsteps pacing the hallways. No more eyes watching me every time I answered the phone. No more fake smiles. Just the soft, steady breathing of my little brother as he slept. For the first time in weeks, he finally slept soundly. My father, on the other hand, looked completely hollow. He sat in the living room for hours, staring into the void. I placed my hand gently on his shoulder. I didn't say anything, because sometimes the deepest pain doesn't need words. The next day, we replayed the audio file from Yuna's USB, this time with a grandma, dad, and Yuna's attorney present. He had flown in after receiving all the files I sent. Mom's voice echoed through the speaker. If you tell anyone you understand Korean, I'll have you committed. Somewhere screaming is just background noise. That voice, the one I used to hear every night before bed, now sounded like a stranger's. Grandma buried her face in her hands. Dad sat frozen. The lawyer simply said, "We need to hand this over to the prosecutor's office." And just like that, the dam broke. Yuna agreed to testify. She appeared via video call from a safe shelter, her face thinner, but her gaze fierce and unshakable. She didn't just lie. She built an entire narrative to make everyone believe I was dangerous. There was a time I thought I was crazy, but no. I was just a kid who saw a truth no one wanted to believe. Her testimony shattered the perfect image my mother had built over the years. The rest of the family started to speak up. People who had stayed silent now opened their mouths. She once told me the girl kept having nightmares. But now I'm starting to think those weren't dreams. I remember her being very interested in inheritance, always asking about Ike's will. One voice became two, then three, then the entire family. What was once a network of buried suspicions became a wildfire of truth. A week later, the first court hearing was held. My mother was charged with intentional harm to a minor psychological abuse, unlawful confinement, and the most severe, attempted murder. The courtroom was dead silent as the audio recording played again. One juror quietly wiped away tears. A man sitting behind me gripped his wife's hand tighter. My dad next to me was trembling. Then it was my turn to take the stand. I told them everything: the blue origami crane, the cloudy milk, Mrs. Chen seeing Mom at Yuna's house the night of the incident. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just told the truth. And that was something my mother couldn't fight against. Then the prosecution revealed her search history. How to induce suffocation in infants, SIDS symptoms, can inheritance be reassigned? The courtroom went quiet again. Finally, the verdict: 15 years in prison, with possibility of parole after 7. My mother stood silently. She didn't cry, didn't react. She just stared at me. And in that gaze, no lies, no mask, just emptiness. Cold, hollow acceptance that it was over. As the officers cuffed her, she turned to me one last time. "You destroyed this family." And I said the only thing I ever needed to say. "No, I saved it." The day they took her away, it rained softly. I stood by the window holding the now wrinkled, faded blue origami crane, but to me it was a symbol of survival. My little brother crawled over, arms out, wanting to be held. I picked him up, pressed my face into his soft hair, and whispered, "You'll never be hurt again. I promise. My family isn't perfect. We're starting over, from pieces. But now, everyone knows the truth. And that truth is the foundation we're using to heal." Chapter 11: After the Storm. After the trial, life didn't go back to normal. It couldn't. But slowly, it began to shape into something new, something better. My mother was sentenced to 15 years, and the moment she stepped out of my life in handcuffs, I realized something: I still had a family. Not the kind of family where everyone blindly trusts each other, but the kind that learns when to doubt, when to make amends, and how to listen, even to the quietest voices like Yuna's. Dad began learning how to be a single father. He fumbled through diaper changes, overcooked vegetables, forgot vaccination appointments. But he tried. And for the first time, he was present. Grandma moved in temporarily. She said it was to help with the baby, but I knew she wanted to be close to us, to make up for the years spent in silence. Maya was still Maya. She still texted every morning. "How's the baby?" Still sent dumb memes every night. I don't know who I'd be right now without her. Mrs. Chen, the guardian angel next door, still dropped by daily with the excuse, "Brought you some seaweed soup for strength." But we both knew she came to make sure my baby brother was still breathing every morning. And Yuna, she wasn't the ghost hiding in the hallway anymore. Not the girl who flinched away from people's stares. She enrolled in an online university studying psychology. Once a month, she came by and held my baby brother as if cradling the piece of childhood stolen from her. We hung a new photo on the wall. Our family at my brother's second birthday party. With real laughter, real smiles, real hugs born from real love. My mother wasn't in the picture, and I didn't feel like anything was missing. We began to redefine what family meant. I still go to therapy every week, because even though it's over, the fear leaves stains. I still double-check the locks every night. I still sleep with the nightlight on, and I still keep the blue origami crane on my desk, not out of fear, but as a reminder that sometimes the ones who need protection aren't the weakest. They're the ones no one ever thinks to protect, like Yuna, like my baby brother, and like me. 6 months after my mother was incarcerated, something strange happened. My baby brother, barely able to string two words together, ran to me and shouted, "Safe!" I burst into tears, because in those two syllables was the proof that everything I had done was worth it. Every lie I told, every fake smile, every time I played her game and beat her at it, it all mattered. No one needs to know what I did. I don't need a medal or applause. All I want is for him to grow up and know that from the beginning someone was always standing in front of him. We don't talk about my mother anymore. Not out of hatred, but because we've chosen to heal in the quietest way, through action, through care, through love that doesn't scream for attention, and by refusing to let the past dictate the future. I'm not the child of a failed murderer. I'm the one who rewrote the ending with silent strength and belief in what's right. One day, Yuna gave me a gift, a new origami crane, white, and instead of a USB inside, was a single line written in her handwriting, no longer evidence, just hope. I folded it back up and placed it beside the old blue crane, one symbol of darkness, one of light, and both of them are true. Some stories leave us with questions. How can someone hide their darkness for a lifetime? How can an entire family be manipulated by a single smile? Sometimes the answer isn't found in the screaming, but in the whispers. A trembling voice, a blue origami crane, a 14-year-old girl who chose to stand up when the whole world turned away. If you've ever doubted your instincts, trust them, because sometimes you are the only one standing between evil and survival. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. If you believe this is a story worth sharing, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next true Reddit stories. And remember, the truth may be silent, but it's always there, waiting for someone brave enough to speak it.